Hello, this is Joseph Carlson, and this is episode 147 of Gaming with Grief, and I'm calling this episode Avin Beat Me, because Avin, is my friend, has been on the podcast a few times, one time many years ago, and pretty recently we talked about Blizzard and Activision. Anyway, Avin and I really love Age of Empires. There was a new one that came out, I believe, last October in 2021, and this is just a funsies episode. Avin hadn't really played. He plays like Civ and stuff like that. And he was on a budget, and I got it for him for Christmas. And we played it via the magic of the internet. I hadn't played an Age of Empires since the original one. And now Avin and I played each other, and he roundly whooped my butt. So you get to hear about our exploits of him just with my butt and us just making each other laugh. He roundly beat me. He is very good at these games. But we could talk about it. You'll hear it coming up. But I want to remind you guys, before the interview part, that this podcast will hit my website, www.gamingwithgrief.com, Monday morning at 7 a.m. So go there, leave a comment below the show. Let me know what you think. You can also subscribe to the podcast on Apple iTunes, the Google Play Store, or Spotify. Or you can write to me at gwgpodfellows@gmail.com. Or you can find me on Twitter at JustLittleJoe, and I will try to get better about promoting the show. So after this little transition, you'll hear Avin and I give each other a hard time on, on him beating me in the game. So, yeah. Okay, cool. Talk to you guys in a couple seconds. All right, Avin. So like I said in the intro, I'm just calling this episode Avin Beat Me because you beat me at Age of Empires 4, like really easily. But I know you play Civilization and things like that. Like, when was the last time you played an actual Age of Empires game? He's thinking.
Oh man, that's a really good question. I mean, before Age of Empires 4, I think the last time I played it was 2011? 2012?
Yeah, so 10 years ago, basically.
10, 11 years? Yeah.
So, do you remember that older version? Do you like the changes that they're... Because the only frame of reference I have is Age of Empires 1 that came out in, 98 or 97 or whenever it came out?
Oh, Lord, I don't know. A long, long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you like the changes they made with this one and stuff?
Yeah, I've been pretty happy with it. The game mechanics are, of course, very, very similar, although they've kind of smoothed some of it out. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they've dressed up the graphics a lot. I think the way that they made each one of the different civilizations unique in this version is really fun. Versus, some of the older versions, they made each one unique, but it was more of unique technologies. Whereas in this one, they've done some really cool, fun things. Like the Mongolians can move their units, but they also aren't able to gather food via farm. So they build, I don't remember what they call it, but it's a particular special building for them that gives them sheep.
Oh.
And it produces sheep at a certain rate.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I would say that would be... if obviously you beat me twice very quickly, but if I was better at the game, the idea that when I saw your scouts coming around, poking around my walls, the idea that I could be like, oh, he's onto me, I could just move all my stuff, that would be incredibly helpful, So.
And against a human, I think it'd be far more useful. I've played against AI that play Mongolia, and it's far more challenging because the computer has scouts running around all the time, and it can manage them permanently. It's never not able to manage a unit. So playing Mongolia versus an AI opponent you don't really see that benefit.
Yeah, one thing I knew, I'll just say, going in, I knew I was really screwed is when I called you on the phone and I got it for you. And like a month later, I said, how are you digging the game? And you're like, oh, I played this faction and that faction and this faction. And I was like, I'm screwed because I've played it maybe 10 minutes to fire it up or install it, really. I don't think I even actually played a match at that point, so I was like, oh my gosh. But I haven't played a strategy game in a long time, and again, I wanted to dive in. I saw the development videos, and it looked like they made a lot of changes. I like the change they made to telling if your unit is resting, so it'll have like the sleepy Z's or whatever, so it'll say like, oh, you got 4 people that aren't doing anything. And I don't know when they included that, but I really appreciate that because I remember playing, obviously, the first one, they didn't have that. You were constantly looking around, making sure people weren't idle, and in this, when you click on it, it just zooms into like, hey, they're over here and they're asleep or whatever. I apparently had some farmers that were embedded with the soldiers I created, so I don't know how they got mixed in with that, but it kept zooming into the soldiers, and I kept having to like bring the camera in. I'm like, wait, there's one guy with the basket next to the, like, it's...
I mean, to be fair, you just don't have enough practice at it, right? Like, I don't want to make it seem like you're terrible at the game.
But I was pretty terrible at the game.
Yeah. Yeah. I just have a...
well, you've always played games like this. You always like Civ and stuff like that, and so...
Yep.
Yeah, so...
The advantage that I have in this, like you said, one, is like I've always played this type of game, but two, like I practice with it a lot. And so I got to know...
You'll do like intermediate matches or whatever with the AI? Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you up to advanced, or are you
like
just...
a lot of the mechanics, a lot of the keyboard shortcuts.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the more basic strategies on like how to build up civilians, how many civilians, how to pursue resources, and how to structure when you're building. And one of the things that you're kind of missing there, having a unit embedded, is you like highlight a whole group, like drag and drop like a box over the units, and there's an info screen at the bottom, and it shows you what the unit mix is in that group you've selected. And civilians show up with a different color backdrop, so they stand out really easy.
Well,
so, I mean, that could have saved you there.
Another thing I was
also...
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say another problem I had was with walls. When I was moving them, I would like try to go like stop and go down, and like when I started the next thing, it was like, no, there's got to be a space, and I was like, that's really weird. I don't know why I was doing that.
No, you were doing something wrong because there shouldn't have been spaces. I'm still scratching my head. Why does Joe have?
I was gonna build
gaps in his walls. Like, this doesn't make any. What's the point of a wall if there's a gap in it?
Yeah. Well, that was another thing where I will say I definitely, right after you beat me for the second time, I was like, I should go back and play this again and really try to. I do like, my thing is maybe, I mean, I have just been playing the English. Maybe I do need to look through. I went on a website, like a Wikipedia for the game, and people were giving strength and weaknesses of each faction, and some of them seemed, I was like, oh, that might be more my style or whatever, Like, I might actually try the Mongolians. I like the idea of just like, hey, we're bone. They know where we're at. Like, move, like, go out the back door. Let's get, like, go away. But, I mean, the sheep thing, that's going to be rough to manage your food, so... Especially when you're trying to build stuff, so...
Yeah, and the mechanic of moving your buildings around means that you're stopping whatever you're doing while those buildings are in motion.
Right.
So it requires a very high level of keeping track of what's going on at different sections of the screen and being able to move around. Because if you get dragged into combat and you forget to replant your building and your guys aren't capturing resources because you're in combat, suddenly now you can't build an army and replace all of the units you
I mean, I've done that too, where like you get to the new age, you get like the structure, you can pick one or two structures.
Yep.
Usually I put it somewhere next to people that are gathering stuff, and I send everybody over there to build, because I'm like, hey, we already got those resources, let's have 9 people on this abbey to build the abbey up, and then I send those people out to go back to gathering whatever,
Man, you got a lot to learn, Joe.
What? Come on.
So I'm just gonna, put this out there. There's a lot of grief on one side of this conversation.
It was.
In relation
I'm
to
that
this
first
game.
time, like the first time you literally burned my farms and everything. The second time you did the same, I gave a little bit of resistance, but I actually had a wall. But I wasn't done building my wall around. I just had 3 of the 4 sides, and you marched in the side that was open, where I was like, oh no. Oh, and then I saw 1 or 2 siege weapons, and I go, that's terrible. Then you had cavalry, and I was like, oh no.
I
No.
mean, I built up a full army. I was expecting some actual resistance.
Well, you were saying stuff too that you try to build 2 bases next to each other so you can do double the output of like whatever. So instead of like 1 archery range, you'll do like 2 archery ranges next to each other. So you're just doubling the amount of troops that you can pump out.
How quickly they pump out, yeah.
Yeah.
So you can build up an army more quickly, which is really useful if you're playing the AI, because, they'll bum rush you while you're attacking them.
Oh. Yeah.
So you'll need to be able to replenish units. And then one of the other strategies is queue up a whole bunch of units beyond your population cap.
Oh, right. Oh, so then if they die, then you automatically get basically reinforcements.
So as units,
they'll give you like
die,
the little red. They'll give you the little red exclamation point, like, "Hey, you don't have enough buildings to sustain these units or whatever," and then you can. That makes sense. That's what I was doing so much wrong. But out of all the civilizations you played, which ones were your favorite so far?
Man, I really like the Abbasid Empire. I'm probably butchering the name.
Oh, the Acid or whatever? Is that what it is?
Is it?
I know it's basically the Middle East. It's like a Middle Eastern. You're checking right now.
I am, to make sure that I get it right.
Is it Asaid maybe?
Maybe it's Asaid. That would make way more sense.
Are they the ones you said their research doesn't cost anything, or is it the Chinese?
No, that's the Delhi Sultanate.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it might be Abbasid dynasty. The camel cavalry units are fantastic.
Oh.
They support infantry that are around them and give them bonuses. They've got some special bonuses that go into it too. And then their research, their landmark structures, instead of doing individual landmark structures, they have like one facility and you build on like wings of it.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, yeah. So you don't have to commit any units to building your landmarks, which is really nice.
That's actually really nice. I never thought of that.
Each wing you build gives you access to several special technologies. So, like one of them.
That was something I figured out right at the
50%.
Yeah, that was something I figured out technology right at the end, right before you marched your siege engines. I was like, oh, I can research stuff, and then you like maybe 30 minutes later you came in. I was like, oh no.
Well, it wasn't even 30 minutes. It was like 10.
I think I did say that to you because
I think I had like 85% of my technologies researched, and you were at like 6 total technologies researched.
Yeah, I think. Well, you and I were like talking on the phone or playing, and I was like, "Oh, that's cool." And you're like, "Yeah, research is cool." And you were probably at that moment marching your army over to like burn my villages again. I will say, my villagers did put up a fight because even after you killed my soldiers, like my villagers pulled out longbows and tried to take out some of your guys. They were like stopped harvesting wood, and we're like, "Oh." And like turned around, and we're like, we're gonna try to attack these.
Fight for your lives.
Yeah, basically.
Fight for your lives.
No, and you burn my abbey down. No, it is something where I want, I talk about it on the podcast a lot, but I do try to get out of my comfort zone and try a different game. And I usually don't play strategy games, but I am really enjoying this and the fact that it's on Game Pass, so there's really no barrier to entry except if you download it in your time.
Oh, nice.
Then it's like I can log in like on a Sunday and play a match or two, So maybe try out maybe I'll try a different civilization against the computer, the AI or whatever.
The Chinese is pretty fun. You might like the Chinese.
I like the rockets.
I think it's called the Beehive. And they have a special artillery structure where you get like a beefed up one, a royal version of their siege weapons, which gives them, I think it's an additional 50% health.
Oh, wow.
And their area of attack siege weapon is pretty amazing. I think it's the Beehive, and yeah, it does a ton of damage. It's really cool. It's like a box that shoots a whole bunch of rockets. Yeah, so I like the Chinese. I like the Abbasid dynasty.
I heard the Romans too. Didn't you say they have better walls? So if you try to like siege, go through the walls or blow up their walls, it's like more difficult to do that or whatever. I think.
Yeah, and then they get prelates, so you can assign them to buildings to increase like research speed or production speed, I think. And then they can also grab relics and store relics in more buildings than you could for all of the other civilizations. Like you can store them in all of your outposts. You can store them in.
Does that give you
your
bonuses
docks.
when you
Hmm?
your relic? What did the relics do? Because I know that was one of the win conditions. But what does it do if you bring in a relic back?
Gathering relics gives you gold.
Oh, which is good.
I don't know if you bring the relics back to your abbey or your monastery, whatever it might be for your civilization. They produce a certain amount of gold. So gathering more of them, you get more gold out of them. They also can be used to convert enemy units. So if you're carrying them around, like if you have a priest or a prelate in your group that has one, they get the ability to convert. And so anyone in a certain range gets converted.
That'd be incredibly handy, like, if you came with, like, I don't know, a bunch of cavalry, and I just had one of them, like, hey, can we take at least 3 of these guys? It'd be great. They're basically converting people to Catholicism, like, mid-battle. That seems incredibly brave of the priests that are, like, running out there with, like, books, like, no, don't attack. Let me tell you about the good Lord. Like, you know,
I think more of it is like, hey, check out how our God is with us in this battle and how we're winning. Yeah. And then people are like, oh, man, their God is against us and helping them win. Yeah. We should probably convert.
Yeah, that was another thing. When you recommended, you know, hey, go play the AI on easy, I did that. And that is when I saw the power of having a healer with you, where they rolled up with... I was like, oh, I played Avin against the Delhi Sultan or whatever. I'll use them again for the... whatever, I'll give this a shot. And they not only rolled their elephants in, but had healers behind them. And they literally... I mean, I was trying to build walls, but they were just like, no. Because it was the same thing where it was 3... That was the one where I had 3 sections of my box built, and there wasn't spaces. But I was like, yeah, I'm going to build... And I was building it, and like right when I was building the last section, I heard the trumpet, and they came from the south going north, and like right into my whatever. I basically just funneled them into my village. And I was like, I'll see what I could do. And I'll see what I can do. And then the healers, I saw the healing symbols go up, and I was like, this is son of a... this wasn't going well at all. So,
yeah, you need some practice at this.
I will say, though...
It is not your genre.
But I had fun. It's just like I remember the first time I played a Magic the Gathering, like I was terrible, and I lost. I lost like round after round against my in-laws, but I wanted to keep playing, you know? and I beat him now. Quite a bit. So it's, you know, I can turn a table. And again, if I can log in on a Sunday and play this for an hour in the morning as like a chill game, you know? Because I think I did make that comment. I think the first game we played, I go, hey, this is a pretty chill game, but we were at the early stages of this gathering, and you go, yeah, well, I mean, it might not be this whole time. I think is what you said. You were like, it gets pretty. And I was like, what do you mean? And then when you came and burned all my villages, and it was like, you're defeated, I was like, I get it now. It's not a very chill game to do that too. Like, ugh.
I mean, it's it can get very intense, and if you're playing against a more difficult AI or someone that's really skilled, and you actually really want to win, there's a lot of pressure to not miss things. It's like competitive StarCraft, where like a couple of missed keystrokes could be the difference between winning and losing in those competitions.
Yeah.
Whereas here, maybe there's a little bit more forgiveness, but not a whole lot. I played a game this morning against a hard AI.
Oh.
And I've beat the hard AI a couple of times, starting the game with high resources, and so I started this game
Oh,
with standard resources, and I wasn't able to build up enough defenses or enough troops fast enough, and so they just mowed over me. And then I restarted the game because they easily defeated me. I
yeah.
had no soldiers left, and their whole army was inside my city.
Yeah, I mean, the first one I did, they were literally burning all my farms and like my town center was destroyed. I was like, well, I think that's about when you text me and said, hey, when do you, like Friday night, when you're like, hey, when do you want to get on and play? Like, as I was losing it, I was like, well, I guess now because like this isn't going to get any better than what I'm playing right now.
I'd rather do it now than just keep dying. Yeah.
Yeah. What are they?
No,
There's only one farm left they're going to burn, so.
it's a pretty fun game. I do enjoy it. The hang on.
Oh my gosh.
Excuse me.
Oh, that's all right.
Sorry.
You're fine.
Um, the learning curve for each civilization does require a bit of commitment to learn not only what are all the different unique abilities, but how to use them correctly.
Right.
It adds a depth to the game that I don't remember the older versions having. I really don't even remember in the old versions of the game the like Civ, another game that I enjoy. Age of Empires 3. I don't remember the necessity of having a massive amount of siege weapons being necessary.
Oh.
And
I just
in
remember
this version of the
ground
game,
units a
there
lot.
are certain defense units that or defensive structures. If you don't have trebuchets or bombards, you're not getting to them. I don't care what you have for an army.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, maybe it'll be a thing where we'll coordinate or whatever. But like, hey, I played a little bit. Do you want to get on and, beat me again? I want to try this again. Maybe I'll pick a different civilization or something, or maybe I'll stick with I do like the British. They're pretty good. The English. They get bonuses for farming, and
The British longbowmen are really powerful.
yeah.
They do a little bit more damage than the standard archer. I think they've got a little bit more range than the standard archer. But then they get a couple of special defensive abilities that.
Well, you said like not the Abbey, but one of the age buildings you build is like an amazing defensive structure. I think that was the first one you went and took out on mine. I don't think it's the Abbey. There's two structures you can build when one of the ages advances.
It's the White
Westing,
Tower.
yeah, the White Tower,
Or London Tower.
the West. I thought it was the Westing. Anyway, whatever.
No. But yeah, it's got like double the range for its archers and garrisoned. It does way more, and then on top of it, you can build in cannon emplacements and springald emplacements, and like it's just ridiculously strong. Like you watch that building next time you build it when someone comes and attacks it, and it's just like a never-ending flow of arrows.
Yeah, I saw that when I played the AI, like in the early stages before I played you.
Yeah.
I did see that I built one near like a corner of the map, and they had not, I think, scouts, but a couple units, and it was like king, 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 and the guy was trying to like get to it, and he's like, bleh!
Yep.
And I was like, whoa. So
Yep, it's incredibly powerful, and because the range is so long, you can't get almost any unit within range of it, except for
like Siege.
you can't get any unit in, like enough units in to destroy it before it's killed off most of them and done massive amounts of damage to your army. But the trebuchet has enough range that it can attack from outside of the structure's defense range. It's a super powerful defensive weapon.
Yeah, that us talking about it right now makes me want to go in and try a quick game. Like after we get, I'm like, maybe I'll try them English again and give it a shot. So, but I mean, it was like I said, it's been a long time, and I know there's been some talk online that like, oh, I'm just going back to Age of Empires 3, and it's like, well, I don't know. And the only thing I haven't seen is I've only done the tutorial and like I think one other mission, but you were saying there's like videos on like warfare, like actual like videos with like historians saying, oh, they would do this and the British would do this, and like
Yep. Yeah, they set them up. When you play through the like beginning tutorial, you're the English, and you go through I don't know, 150 or 200 years of English history and battles, and before each mission or segment of the I don't want to call it a tutorial, but sort of
they call it a campaign because you play through the Normandy campaign or the whatever. Like
yeah, but it's also like build this unit, build that unit, and
Yeah.
they sort of guide you along because they talk about this particular structure was incredibly important in this battle, and what they'll do is they'll like do a video of the actual area.
Oh wow.
Right now, today, and then they'll like overlay units fighting in those areas and talk about the battle and how it works.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
They're pretty cool. The only campaign that I've done so far is the English one, but I'm sure
I think there's like 5 of them you can do.
The Russian one's good.
I just saw there was an achievement for like I think 5 different, like the Mongol campaign, the whatever campaign, like the Chinese. There's like 5 I think you can do. And then if you're doing the campaign and you do specific things, they give you an achievement, which seems, I mean, obviously I'm a novice, but I'm like, that seems incredibly daunting. Like, steal this thing in this campaign during this mission, during this point of time. You're like, wait, what? I guess I could replay it, but that seems very hard. So,
I mean, depends on what you're trying to do. Some of the additional quests that they're talking about are actually pretty easy to achieve. Some of them not so much.
Not so much, yeah. So, I guess it would be differences like on days of the week to ask you, but do you enjoy this more or do you like Civ 6 more than... Because you played Civ 6 a lot, and I know I downloaded it for free, and you're like, hey man, anytime. And the amount of time you put into it scared me more than Age of Empires 4, because I know you play these games, but I thought, well, we're both kind of coming in at Age of Empires 4 like an even footing. We haven't played in a while. But Civ, you've dropped so much time in it. I'm more intimidated to fight you in Sim.
Age of Empires 4 is really nice from a perspective of I want to sit down and play for a couple of hours. Like, I want to play a game on the weekend, but I still have things I want to do. Civilization, no matter which version you're playing, is I'm going to spend my entire weekend in front of my computer.
Can you save like mid missions and stuff though? Like Civ? Yeah. Like if you're... So you could save.
Yep.
That's good though.
And with Civilization, like, at least in my own personal opinion, like as an adult that's married, that owns a house where I've got like responsibilities, I always end up having to save because I can never get more than a few hours of playtime in. But then you come back to the game and you're trying to remember where you were at. And it's just more difficult. So Civilization has a different place. From a strategy perspective, it's far more in depth because you're planning technologies way further out and what's going to happen, and you're managing multiple different cities' economies and trade and political interactions. Whereas Age of Empires, your options are destroy your enemy's landmarks, capture all of the sacred sites and hold them, build a wonder and hold them, and I think collect all of the relics and hold them for a certain period of time.
Yeah. That sounds right.
Yeah, so your win conditions are a lot smaller.
Well, I noticed, yes, I lost, but like they were like an hour even when you and I played, and you were just being mildly aggressive, like you weren't being so aggressive. It was like an hour. So like if I wake up Sunday morning and go, yeah, it's 7, I'll have a cup of coffee, and for an hour I'm just going to sit here and probably get beat by whatever civilization. Then, even if you win, it could take a little bit longer, but...
I've had a couple hour games. I've had a couple of 2-hour-long games against AI.
That's still not that bad, though, like you said, compared to, like, half your Saturday or whatever playing Civ.
Yeah.
It's easier
it's easy to sink a lot of time when you're really pushing yourself to a new level of difficulty or trying to learn a new civilization, because it's not hard to restart a couple of times trying to get into it.
Yeah. So as a quick aside, I did want to talk about Age of Empires 4, but like I sent you that video for the Dune strategy game, the new redone Dune. That looks really good too. I remember seeing that a long time ago, but never playing it. But I love Dune, I love sci-fi, and that'd definitely be something I'd want to try. But I don't know when that's coming out. I know Funcom is developing it. I think they got money from Tencent, but Tencent, even though whatever you say about a Chinese investor, I guess some investors of Funcom actually were like, hey, when are you coming out with that Dune thing? I know you've been working on it. So like they're interested in them doing it. And there's obviously footage now.
Well, yeah, they're showing gameplay footage,
Yeah.
so they've got to be reasonably close, right?
I do like the added kind of wild card of the sandworms that they showed in the trailer. Like, you could be fighting, and a sandworm is like, oh, is that vibration? And just, like, eats your harvester or, like, your units where you're like, oh, no. Like, I don't know. You being a strategy guy, you may hate that. I think it adds a level of chaos where you're like, hey, we're kind of both, you know what I mean? We could equally get screwed over on this, you know? Like,
My suspicion is you can manipulate that, just like in the books and movies.
put some thumpers down or something.
Benefit. Like, put thumpers down, or, intentionally fight your enemy near their spice gatherers. I think there's ways you could use that for your advantage, is my guess.
Yeah, I wonder if you could be the Arakans and they could do like a stealth mission and just dump thumpers around and then run away. And then and I wonder if like the thumpers have health. It's like you kill them, but the thumpers are like going, and you have like just like when you hold the relics in Age of Empire, if like the thumpers have a timer of like you have this much time to destroy these, the sandworms are on their way. You know, it's not a total win condition. You can get out of it, but you better be quick. Like that would be very interesting because they're gonna eat all your stuff. Like,
and again, you're adding another depth into the strategy. I think what you're looking at with the Dune game though is going to be closer to like an Age of Empires type strategy where it's going to be a shorter gameplay, gather resources, you build armies, and then you achieve your objective, be it capture a point, wipe out the enemy completely, or wipe out certain structures, whatever it may be.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm looking forward. Did I say that video because I was like, hey, look, another one that you can beat me at. But, yeah, I think maybe I'll get in contact with you in like a week or two and be like, hey, man, it's Friday. If you don't got anything going on, you want to come beat me again? And I'll try somebody else to. But, I mean, it's fun. It's like, like I said, I don't normally play it. But even though I lost, I was like, okay, I'm starting to get a little bit of the flow of it, like resources. I actually built an army when you tagged me last time, but not obviously to the scope of your siege weapons. There was soldiers. The only change I wish is there was like an alert where like there's a bell on my civilization so you're being attacked. I wish your soldiers would come, but I had to like manually tell them to like go over there and defend. Like,
yep.
It's like I wish there was one thing that's like, oh no, we all need to come over, instead of telling them there was like a threat.
Your units will automatically attack the enemy within a certain range, but they won't just run across your base or the map because the bell's going off. You do have to move them. And you had your soldiers pretty spread out.
I tried to get them at the points of the walls, but I didn't.
No holes in your walls that shouldn't.
Yeah, I put soldiers, I stuffed soldiers in those holes in the wall to see if they stop the attack. So
yeah, see, so strategy games like that just aren't your strength, Joe.
It might be later, but yeah.
Practice. You need some practice.
Yeah. Well, Avin, it's been fun. Thank you for beating me. I'm sure, like I said, in the next couple of weeks, I'll be like, hey man, it's Friday. Do you want to come beat me again? And you'll be like, yeah. I want to feel good. I want to feel really good about myself.
You off the map.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks, Avin. Thanks for talking.
Yeah. Good to be here.
So that was Avin talking about how he beat me in Age of Empires 4. And like I said, I had a good time, even though he beat me a lot. So I think that's going to end it this week, guys. Just to remind you guys that this podcast will hit my website, www.gamingwithgrief.com, Monday morning at 7 a.m. Please go there and let me know what you think of the show. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple iTunes or Google Play Store, and I'm on Spotify. Or you can find me on Twitter at JustLittleJoe, or you can drop me a line, an actual email, at gwgpodfellows@gmail.com. So go to all those places. And again, I will get better about promoting this. But till then, have a good week, and I will talk to you guys again next week. Bye.